She fed a homeless woman outside the restaurant, lost her job for it, and thought that was the end. What she didn't know, that woman was a mafia boss's missing mother. And he doesn't forget debts, especially ones paid in kindness. The rain hit the windows of Russo's like bullets. Clara Martinez wiped down table 7 for the third time, her feet screaming inside her worn sneakers. 9 hours into her shift, and the Friday night crowd showed no signs of thinning. Laughter bounced off the marble floors. Crystal glasses clinked. The smell of expensive wine and seared steaks filled the air. This was the kind of place where people spent more on one meal than Clara made in a week. She glanced at the clock, 10:47 p.m. Just over an hour until closing. Then she could go home, peel off these shoes, and collapse into bed. Tomorrow she'd do it all over again. That was life. That was survival in New York City when you were 26, alone, and one missed paycheck away from disaster. Clara, table 12 needs water. Marcus, the floor manager, snapped his fingers at her like she was a dog. On it, she called back, forcing a smile. As she turned toward the kitchen, movement near the entrance caught her eye. Through the rain-streaked glass door, a figure hunched against the building. A woman, thin as a wire, wearing a coat that might have been blue once but now looked like something dredged from a dumpster. The woman's face pressed close to the window, watching the diners inside with hollow eyes. Clara's chest tightened. She'd seen that look before, in mirrors, in faces at the shelter where she'd volunteered before taking this job. The look of someone who'd forgotten what a full stomach felt like. The woman's breath fogged the glass. She was shivering so hard Clara could see it from 20 feet away. Clara. Water. Marcus's voice cut through her thoughts. She grabbed a pitcher and made her rounds, but her eyes kept drifting back to the door. The woman was still there, getting wetter by the second, her thin frame shaking. When Clara returned to the service station, she made a decision. It wasn't smart. It wasn't safe for her job. But it was right. She grabbed a menu and walked to the entrance. Behind her, Marcus was busy schmoozing a regular customer who tipped in hundreds. Good. She'd have maybe 5 minutes. Clara pushed open the door. Cold rain slapped her face. "Ma'am," she said softly. The woman jerked back, startled. Up close, she looked 60, but was probably 40. Her face was weathered like old leather, her gray hair plastered to her skull. But her eyes, God, her eyes were the saddest thing Clara had ever seen. "I'm sorry," the woman whispered. I didn't mean to." "Would you like to come inside?" Clara asked. "Get out of this rain?" The woman stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. "I can't. I don't have money for." "Don't worry about that." Clara held the door open wider. "Please. You'll catch pneumonia out here." For a long moment, the woman didn't move. Then, slowly, she stepped inside. Clara led her to a corner booth, the least visible spot in the restaurant. A few heads turned. A woman in pearls wrinkled her nose. A man in a suit whispered something to his date, and they both smirked. Clara felt her face burn, but she kept moving. "Have a seat," she said gently. "I'll be right back." In the kitchen, she moved fast. 1 bowl of minestrone soup, the cheapest thing on the menu but still hot and filling. 2 rolls. A glass of water. She paid for it from her tips, money she'd been saving for her electric bill. Whatever. The electric company could wait 1 more day. When she brought the food out, the woman's eyes filled with tears. "I can't," she started. "You can," Clara said firmly. "And you will. Eat." The woman picked up the spoon with trembling hands. The first taste seemed to break something inside her. She started crying silently, tears running down her cheeks as she ate. Clara stood nearby, protective, ready to run interference if anyone complained. That's when she heard the footsteps. Sharp. Angry. Coming fast. "Martinez." Marcus's voice cracked through the dining room like a whip. Several conversations stopped. Heads turned. Clara's stomach dropped. Marcus stormed over, his face purple with rage. He looked at the homeless woman, then at Clara, then back at the woman like she was something he'd scraped off his shoe. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed. She was cold, Clara said quietly. You brought a homeless person into my restaurant." His voice rose. Other diners were definitely watching now. "Do you have any idea what this does to our image? What our customers think when they see?" "She's a human being," Clara interrupted. "She needed help. She needs to leave." Now Marcus grabbed the bowl of soup. The woman flinched, shrinking into herself. Something snapped inside Clara. She'd taken enough. From Marcus, from the sneering customers, from a world that treated kindness like a crime. "No," she said. Marcus's eyes went wide. "Excuse me? Let her finish eating. Then she'll go." "You're done," Marcus said, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "Give me your apron. You're fired." The restaurant went silent. Even the kitchen noise seemed to stop. Clara stared at him. She should beg. She should apologize. She needed this job desperately. But when she looked at the homeless woman, at her frightened face, at the way she was trying to make herself invisible, Clara couldn't do it. She untied her apron slowly, folded it, placed it in Marcus's outstretched hand. "You're making a mistake," he said coldly. "I'll make sure every restaurant in this district knows your name. You'll never work in this industry again." Clara said nothing. She turned to the woman, who was crying again. "Finish your soup," Clara said gently. "Take your time." Then she walked out into the rain, her uniform soaking through, her tips for the night left behind, her future crumbling. She didn't know that in less than 3 hours, a black Mercedes would pull up to this same restaurant. She didn't know that the most dangerous man in New York City was about to walk through that door, looking for his mother. And she definitely didn't know that the homeless woman she'd just fed, the woman currently crying into a bowl of soup, would change her life forever. The rain was cold. Clara started walking. Behind her, through the window, she could see Marcus already cleaning up the table, erasing any evidence that kindness had happened here tonight. But some things, once done, can't be undone. Some acts of grace set wheels in motion that no one can stop. Luca DeSantis didn't do panic. He'd stared down federal prosecutors, rival families, and the barrel of more guns than he could count. At 34, he controlled half the legitimate businesses in Lower Manhattan and all of the illegitimate ones. People crossed the street when they saw him coming. But tonight, driving through rain-soaked streets at midnight, his jaw was clenched tight enough to crack teeth. His mother was missing. Again. "Boss, we got something," Tony said from the passenger seat, phone pressed to his ear. "Vinny says a woman matching her description was spotted on Lexington, near that fancy place Russo's." Luca's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "When?" "Couple hours ago. Around 11-inch. 3 cars followed behind them, filled with his men. Excessive for most situations, but when it came to Maria DeSantis, Luca took no chances. She disappeared 8 months ago after their last fight, the worst one they'd ever had. He'd said things he regretted. She'd said she didn't want to be part of this life anymore. Then she'd vanished like smoke. He'd searched everywhere, put word on every street, called in favors from coast to coast. And nothing. His mother, who'd raised him alone after his father died, who'd worked 3 jobs to keep him fed, had chosen the streets over him. The guilt ate at him every single day. "Pull up here," Luca ordered, parking a block from Russo's. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. The restaurant's warm lights glowed like a beacon. He walked toward the entrance, his black coat and darker reputation clearing a path. His men fanned out, checking exits, watching corners. This was their world: control, observation, power. Marcus, the floor manager, was locking the front door when he saw them coming. His face went white. "Mr. DeSantis," he stammered, fumbling with his keys. "We're closed, but for you, of course." "I'm not here to eat." Luca's voice was cold and flat. "You had a homeless woman here tonight. Where is she? Marcus's eyes darted nervously. In this neighborhood, everyone knew who Luca was. Everyone knew you answered his questions quickly and honestly. There was. Yes, earlier. But she's gone now. Left hours ago. Tell me everything. Marcus licked his lips. She was outside, begging or something. One of my waitresses, ex-waitress now, brought her inside. Fed her. I handled the situation and terminated the employee immediately. We don't tolerate. The woman. Luca cut him off. What did she look like? Old. Gray hair.
Dirty.
Probably mentally ill, you know how they. What did she look like? Luca stepped closer. His voice didn't rise, but the temperature in the air seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus's throat bobbed.
Thin.
Maybe 5'4". Gray hair, kind of long. She had. I don't know, brown eyes. She didn't cause trouble. Just ate some soup and left. Brown eyes. 5'4". The right age. Luca's chest constricted. Which way did she go? I don't know. East, maybe? Look, Mr. DeSantis, I'm sorry if she was someone you. The waitress who fed her. Luca interrupted. What's her name? Marcus blinked, confused by the question. Clara Martinez. But I fired her. She violated our. Where does she live? I can't give out employee information. Luca just looked at him. Didn't say a word. Didn't move. Just looked. Marcus cracked in 5 seconds. I'll get her file. While they waited, Tony touched Luca's arm. Boss, we got 3 teams searching the area. If she's nearby, we'll find her. Luca nodded, but his mind was racing. His mother had been here. Hungry. Cold.
Alone.
While he'd been sitting in his penthouse drinking scotch, she'd been begging outside a restaurant window. The failure crushed him. Marcus returned with a personnel file, hands shaking as he handed it over. Luca flipped it open. Clara Martinez's photo stared back at him. Young, dark-haired, with eyes that looked tired but kind. Tell me exactly what happened, Luca said quietly. Marcus explained the whole scene. How Clara had brought the woman inside, fed her from her own tips, refused to send her away even when ordered, got fired protecting someone she didn't even know. She was stubborn about it, Marcus added, like this was a character flaw. Wouldn't listen to reason. Something shifted in Luca's chest. This stranger, this waitress struggling to survive in an expensive city, had shown his mother more kindness than he'd managed in 8 months. She'd sacrificed her job, her income, her future. For a woman everyone else had looked through like glass. The woman who was here, Luca said slowly. She's my mother. The blood drained from Marcus's face. I didn't. Mr. DeSantis, I had no idea. Of course you didn't, Luca's voice was soft, which somehow made it more terrifying. Because you didn't bother to see her as a person. Just a problem to remove. Sir, I was just maintaining standards. You fired someone for showing compassion. For feeding a hungry woman, Luca leaned in close. Do you understand what you've done? Marcus was sweating now despite the cold. I'll rehire her immediately. First thing tomorrow. You'll do nothing, Luca tucked Clara's file under his arm. In fact, you're going to have a very difficult month ahead. Health inspections. Tax audits. Supplier issues. Consider it a lesson in empathy. He turned to leave, then paused. And Marcus? If I find out you've contacted Clara Martinez or interfered with her in any way, we'll have a much longer conversation. Understood. Marcus nodded frantically. Outside, the rain had stopped. Luca stood on the sidewalk, looking at Clara's address. She lived in Queens, a small apartment in a neighborhood where doors had 3 locks and windows had bars. Tony, find my mother, he ordered. Use everyone. Every contact. I don't care what it costs. What about the waitress? Luca studied her photo again. Clara Martinez had no idea what she'd started. No idea that her simple act of kindness had tied her fate to the most dangerous family in New York. She'd saved his mother when he couldn't, fed her when she was starving, treated her with dignity when the world treated her like trash. That meant something in Luca's world. That meant everything. The waitress, he said quietly, just became family. The call came at 6:47 a.m. Luca hadn't slept. He'd spent the entire night coordinating search teams, reviewing security footage, checking every shelter and soup kitchen within a 10-mile radius. His penthouse apartment felt like a cage. "We found her," Tony said. "She's safe." Luca closed his eyes. "Where?" "St. Anthony's Church. She was sleeping in the basement. Father Rodriguez has been hiding her." Of course. His mother had always loved that church. Luca was there in 15 minutes. The safe house was a brownstone in Brooklyn that Luca kept for situations exactly like this. Quiet, secure, off the books. When he walked in, his mother was sitting at the kitchen table wearing clean clothes someone had bought her, her gray hair still damp from a shower. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the fierce woman who'd raised him. "Mama," Luca said softly. Maria de Santos looked up. For a moment, neither moved. 8 months of silence hung between them like a wall. Then her face crumpled, and she started crying. Luca crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. She felt like bird bones, so thin he was afraid he'd break her. When had she gotten this small? "I'm sorry," she sobbed into his chest. "I'm so sorry, Luca. I was so angry, and I said terrible things."
Shuh.
I know, Mama," his voice cracked. "I said terrible things too." They held each other for a long time. Outside, his men gave them privacy. Inside, the most feared man in New York cried with his mother. Finally, they sat. Luca poured her coffee, watched her wrap her hands around the mug like it was precious. She still had that habit, he remembered, from the years when hot coffee was a luxury they couldn't always afford. "Why didn't you call me?" he asked. "Why the streets?" Maria stared into her cup. "I was ashamed. After what I said, calling your business evil, saying you were just like your father's killers, I didn't know how to come back from that. I would have forgiven you in a heartbeat." "I know," she smiled sadly. "That's why I couldn't face you. You would have taken me back immediately, and I needed to. I don't know. Punish myself, maybe. Prove I could survive without your blood money." Luca flinched. "Mama." "I was wrong," she interrupted. "Living out there, I learned something. The world isn't as simple as I wanted it to be. There's cruelty everywhere in people wearing suits and people wearing crowns. And sometimes," her eyes grew distant, "sometimes kindness comes from unexpected places." "Tell me about last night," Luca said gently. Maria's face softened. "It was so cold. I'd been walking for hours, trying to find somewhere warm. Then I saw this restaurant, all lit up, people inside eating like they'd never known hunger." She paused. "I wasn't going to go in. I just wanted to look through the window. Remember what warmth felt like." Luca's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Then this young woman came outside. She was a waitress. I could tell from her uniform. And Luca, she looked at me. Really looked at me. Not through me, not past me. At me. Maria's eyes filled with tears again. She asked if I wanted to come inside. "Clara," Luca said. "You know her name?" "I know everything about her now." Maria nodded slowly. She took me to a corner table. Brought me soup. Hot, fresh soup that I didn't have to beg for, didn't have to steal. She paid for it herself. I heard her tell the cook to take it from her tips. Her voice broke. Do you know what that meant? Someone who probably struggles to pay rent, giving me food from her own pocket. Luca felt something twist in his chest. The other customers stared. Maria continued. They whispered. I could hear them judging her, judging me. But she didn't care. She stood right there like a guard, making sure I could eat in peace. She looked at her son. When that manager came over, screaming at her, calling me names, she defended me. Lost her job for me. For a stranger. She didn't know who you were. Exactly. Maria grabbed his hand. That's what made it real. She didn't help me because I was connected to power or money. She helped me because I was hungry. Because I was human. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I forgot what that felt like, Luca. Being seen as a person. She gave me that. Luca stared at their joined hands. His mother's were wrinkled now, marked by months on the street. He thought about Clara Martinez and her tiny apartment in Queens, probably awake right now worrying about rent, about bills, about how she'd survive losing her job. She'd given away money she couldn't afford to lose. Sacrificed a job she desperately needed. All for a woman she'd never see again. No strings. No angles. Just kindness. In Luca's world, everything had a price. Loyalty was bought. Favors were traded.
Trust was a weapon.
But Clara had operated outside all of that. She'd acted from something purer, something Luca had almost forgotten existed. I need to thank her, Maria said. Is there a way? I'll handle it, Luca said quietly. Luca, please don't scare her. She seemed so gentle. He thought about that. About how his world must look from outside. The violence, the fear, the darkness. Clara Martinez had stepped into that darkness without knowing it. She'd touched his life in a way nobody had in years. She'd reminded him what goodness looked like. I won't scare her, he promised. But Mama, she helped you. In my world, that means something. That means she's under my protection now, whether she knows it or not. Maria studied his face. She did something kind, Luca. Don't turn it into something else. I'm not, he squeezed her hand. I'm making sure the world doesn't punish her for being kind. There's a difference. His mother looked like she wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. She'd been running on empty for months. Now, finally safe, her body was demanding rest. Sleep, Luca said. We'll talk more later. As he tucked her into bed in one of the safe house rooms, Maria caught his wrist. That girl saved more than my life last night, she whispered. She saved my faith that people can still be good. Don't lose sight of that. Luca nodded. But as he left the room and pulled out his phone, scrolling to Clara's address, he knew something had shifted. Clara Martinez had shown kindness to his mother when he'd failed to find her. She'd protected Maria when he couldn't. She'd given dignity to the one person in the world he loved more than his own life. In Luca DeSantis' world, debts like that didn't go unpaid. By noon the next day, Luca knew everything about Clara Martinez. He sat in his office overlooking the city, reading through the file his people had compiled. Tony stood nearby, waiting. She's clean, boss, Tony said. I mean, squeaky clean. No criminal record. Not even a parking ticket. Luca flipped through pages. Clara's entire life laid out in black and white. Born in El Paso, Texas. Mother died when she was 16, cancer. Father, Miguel Martinez, construction worker, raised her alone after that. She'd gotten a scholarship to community college, studied hospitality management. Then her father had a stroke 3 years ago. Clara dropped out, moved to New York for better job opportunities. Sent money home every month for his care. He was in a nursing facility now. The bills were drowning her. Employment history? Luca asked. 4 restaurants in 3 years. Good references from 3 of them. Left each one for slightly better pay. Russo's was her best gig yet until last night. Tony paused. She works hard, boss. Picks up every extra shift. Never calls in sick. Luca studied her photo again. In it, she was smiling, probably for some employee badge. But even in that smile, he could see the exhaustion. The weight she carried. Connections? Friends? Not many. A roommate, Jenny Chun, nursing student. They share a 1-bedroom in Queens. Clara takes the couch. Tony consulted his notes. Couple of friends from her old restaurants, but she doesn't go out much. No boyfriend. No social media presence except a dead Facebook account from college. No support system, Luca thought. Just like his mother had been. Alone in a city that chewed people up. Debts. Tony's expression darkened. That's the rough part. Her father's nursing home costs $4,000 a month. Medicare covers some, but Clara's on the hook for $2,000 monthly. She's been juggling credit cards, taking out small loans. She's current on everything, but barely. What else? Medical debt. Hospital bills from 2 years ago. Tony flipped a page. Looks like she had an emergency appendectomy. No insurance at the time. She's been making minimum payments, but he trailed off. How much? 18,000. Down from 23. She pays $100 a month. Luca did the math. At that rate, it would take her 15 more years to pay it off. 15 years of interest piling up, of collection calls, of that debt hanging over her head like a sword. All because she'd gotten sick and had the audacity to not die from it. What about her apartment? Luca asked. Month-to-month lease. Rent's due in 5 days. $1,100. Tony met his eyes. Boss, she paid for your mother's soup with her tip money. That was probably grocery money. Maybe even rent money. Something cold settled in Luca's chest. Clara had given his mother food she couldn't afford to give, had sacrificed income she desperately needed. And now she had no job at all. Where is she now? Home. Been there since she got fired. According to the roommate, she's been applying to jobs online all morning. Tony hesitated. Boss, what are you thinking? Luca stood, walked to the window. Far below, the city moved like an anthill. Millions of people, all struggling, all fighting to survive. Most of them invisible to people like him. Clara Martinez had every reason to walk past his mother. She was broke, tired, barely hanging on herself. But she'd stopped. She'd cared. That meant something. The medical debt, Luca said quietly. I want it gone. How do you want to? Anonymously. Set up a payment through one of our shell companies. Make it look like, I don't know, a hospital billing error. A charity program. Something she'll believe. Tony nodded, making notes. And Tony? Make sure it's clean. No traces back to me. No strings attached. She doesn't need to know where it came from. Got it. What about her rent?
Luca thought about that.
Rent was trickier. Too obvious. Clara would ask questions. Not yet. Let's see how things play out. He turned back to the file. But I want someone watching her building. Discreet. If anyone gives her trouble, I want to know immediately. Already done. Polly's on it.
Good.
Luca flipped through more pages. Clara's college transcripts, straight A's until she dropped out. Letters of recommendation from professors. One called her extraordinarily compassionate and dedicated. Another said she had a gift for making people feel valued. His mother had felt valued last night, maybe for the first time in 8 months. What about her father? Luca asked. Miguel Martinez, 62. Partial paralysis from the stroke. He's at Sunrise Senior Living in El Paso. Clara calls him every Sunday. Tony's voice softened. According to the nurse I talked to, he doesn't always remember who she is anymore. But she calls anyway. Luca closed the file. Clara Martinez was exactly what she appeared to be, a good person trapped in a bad situation. No angles. No schemes. Just a woman trying to keep her head above water while taking care of everyone else. In his world, people like that got eaten alive.
Not this time.
Set up the medical debt payment today, Luca ordered. And Tony, pull her employment records from Russo's. I want to see Marcus's official termination report. Planning something? Just being thorough. After Tony left, Luca sat alone with the file. He thought about his mother's words. She saved my faith that people can still be good.
Don't lose sight of that.
He wouldn't. But he also wouldn't let Clara suffer for her goodness. The world punished kindness enough already. His phone buzzed. A text from the hospital billing department contact. Payment processed. $18,000 paid in full to Clara Martinez's account. Sent notification letter citing Patient Assistance Fund. Luca allowed himself a small smile. It wasn't much. Wouldn't solve all her problems. But $18,000 of weight just lifted off her shoulders. She'd never know it came from him. That was fine. This wasn't about gratitude or recognition. It was about balance. About making sure that one act of kindness didn't cost her everything. He looked out at the city again. Somewhere out there, Clara Martinez was probably staring at rejection emails, wondering how she'd pay next month's rent, carrying the weight of her choices. Soon, she'd get a letter. One small piece of good news in a dark time. It wouldn't fix everything, but maybe, just maybe, it would remind her that kindness still mattered. That it wasn't always punished. Luca picked up his phone and called his accountant. There was more work to do. Clara's problems weren't solved yet. But they would be. He'd make sure of it. 3 days after getting fired, Clara got a letter from the hospital. She opened it expecting another payment reminder. Instead, she stared at words that didn't make sense. Patient Assistance Fund. Account paid in full. $000 balance. Her hands shook.
$18,000. Gone.
Just like that. Jenny, she called to her roommate. Did you see this? Jenny Chin looked over from her nursing textbooks. See what? My hospital debt. It says it's paid off. That's amazing. Did your dad's insurance?
No.
It doesn't make sense. Clara read the letter 3 times. Some fund she'd never heard of. A program that hadn't existed when she'd called last month asking about payment options. Maybe it's a mistake, Jenny said. Yet Clara folded the letter carefully. Maybe, but mistakes didn't usually favor people like her. Still, she wasn't about to question it. If some clerical error had wiped out her debt, she'd take it. God knew she needed the break. With one less weight on her shoulders, she threw herself into job hunting. She had rent due in 2 days, and her savings account had exactly $347 in it. The first restaurant called her in for an interview that same afternoon. Clara dressed in her best clothes, a black skirt and white blouse she saved for important occasions. The manager at Giuseppe's seemed nice enough. He looked at her resume, nodded approvingly. Your experience is solid, he said. We could use someone who knows fine dining. When can you start? Hope bloomed in Clara's chest. Immediately. Tomorrow if you need.
Great.
Let me just make a quick call to verify your last employment. He stepped into the back office. Clara waited, already imagining the relief of having income again. She'd make rent, send money to her dad, get back on track. The manager returned 5 minutes later. His entire demeanor had changed. I'm sorry, he said, not meeting her eyes. The position's been filled. But you just said. I was mistaken. We're not hiring after all, he handed back her resume. Good luck elsewhere. Clara walked out confused. That was strange. But maybe they really had just filled a position. She'd try somewhere else. The next restaurant rejected her application by email within an hour. The one after that told her over the phone that they didn't think she'd be a good fit. A fourth said they were hiring, then changed their mind when she gave them Russo's as a reference. By the end of the day, she'd applied to 7 places. 7 rejections. On day 2, she expanded her search. Diners, cafes, even fast food. Places that always needed servers, places that had hired her friends with no experience. Nothing. Previous employer gave a poor reference. One manager told her bluntly. Said you were unreliable. Caused disruptions. Clara felt ice in her veins. That's not true. I was fired for helping a customer. Look, I don't know the details. I just know what they told me, he shrugged. Sorry, kid. By day 3, Clara understood what was happening. Marcus had blacklisted her. She sat in her tiny apartment, laptop open, staring at another rejection email. Jenny was at clinical rotations. The silence pressed down like a physical weight. Clara pulled up Russo's corporate website. They weren't just one restaurant. They were owned by Prestige Dining Group, a company that operated 43 restaurants across New York and New Jersey. She recognized some of the names. Places she'd worked before.
Places she'd applied to this week.
They were all connected. And Marcus had made sure they all knew her name.
Her phone rang.
For a moment, hope flickered. Maybe one of the applications. Ms. Martinez? This is Riverside Management regarding your rent. Her stomach dropped. It's not due until tomorrow. We're calling to remind you that late payments result in a $100 fee. And Ms. Martinez, given your recent employment change, we need to discuss your lease status. My lease is month to month. I can pay. See that you do. The woman's voice was cold. We have a waiting list for this unit. We'd hate to have to replace you. The call ended. Clara sat there, phone in hand, feeling the walls close in. She had enough for this month's rent.
Barely.
But next month? The month after? Her laptop dinged. Another rejection email. This one from a diner in Brooklyn where she'd had a good conversation with the owner. After further consideration, we've decided to pursue other candidates. Clara closed her laptop. She wanted to scream,
To cry. To throw something.
Instead, she just sat there numb. She'd helped a hungry woman. That was it. That was her crime. And now she was being systematically punished for it. Blacklisted. Blocked from working. Branded as problematic. Was this how the world worked? Was this what happened when you tried to do the right thing? Her phone buzzed. A text from her dad's nursing home. Reminder. October payment due October 20th. Please confirm receipt of funds. 3 days away. $2,000 she didn't have. Clara put her head in her hands. For the first time since her mother died, she felt truly hopeless. She'd been poor before. Struggled before. But she'd always had options, always had something to fight toward. Now every door was slamming shut. And she couldn't even tell her father what was happening. On their Sunday calls, he barely remembered her name. How could she explain that she was failing him? Maybe it was a mistake, she whispered to the empty apartment. Maybe I should have just looked away. But even as she said it, she knew she couldn't have. That woman, that cold, scared, hungry woman had needed help. Clara couldn't have walked past her any more than she could have stopped breathing. She'd made her choice. And now she was paying for it. Clara stood, walked to the window. Outside, the city glittered with lights. Millions of people living their lives, chasing their dreams, fighting their battles. Most of them would never know her name, never know she existed. She was just another casualty in a city that had no mercy for the kind. Her phone buzzed again. Another rejection. She didn't even bother reading it. Rent was due tomorrow. Her father's payment in 3 days. And she had no job, no prospects, and no way out. Clara closed her eyes and tried to remember why she'd come to New York in the first place. What dream had she been chasing? It felt so long ago, so far away. Now all she had was debt, fear, and the bitter knowledge that kindness had a price. And she couldn't afford to pay it. The knock came at 8 p.m. Clara froze on the couch, laptop balanced on her knees. Jenny was at the hospital for night shift. Nobody visited them. Nobody even knew where they lived except the landlord and bill collectors. Another knock. Firmer this time. She crept to the door, looked through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway, tall, dark suit, expression blank. Behind him, she could see another man at the stairs. Who is it? She called. Ms. Martinez. My employer would like to speak with you. He's downstairs. Her heart hammered. About what? He'll explain.
Please.
It's important. Something in his tone, respectful but not threatening, made her crack the door, chain still on. I'm not going anywhere with strangers. The man nodded like he expected this. Mr. DeSantis thought you might say that. He asked me to tell you it's about the woman you helped 3 nights ago. At Russo's. Clara's breath caught. The homeless woman. How did anyone? He just wants to thank you, the man continued. 5 minutes of your time. That's all.
DeSantis.
The name tickled something in her memory. She'd heard it somewhere, whispered in restaurants, mentioned in news articles she'd scrolled past. Is this about getting fired? She asked. Because I didn't sue or anything. I'm not looking for trouble. No trouble. Just gratitude. The man's expression softened slightly. The woman you fed was his mother. Clara's mind reeled. His mother? That frail, scared woman was someone's mother. Someone who sent men in suits to track down waitresses. Someone powerful. I'll come down, she said finally. But I'm not getting in any cars. Fair enough. Clara grabbed her jacket, hands shaking. She followed the man downstairs, acutely aware of Mrs. Chun from 3B peeking through her door, of Mr. Rodriguez stopping on the stoop to stare. On the street, a black Mercedes idled at the curb. Neighbors stood on their stoops, pretending not to watch. This was a neighborhood where black Mercedes meant either weddings or trouble, and nobody was dressed for a wedding. The rear door opened. A man stepped out. Clara's first thought was that he looked younger than she expected. Mid-30s maybe, with dark hair and darker eyes. He wore an expensive coat and moved with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. Her second thought was that he looked dangerous.
Not in an obvious way.
He wasn't glaring or posturing, but something about him. The way other people unconsciously stepped back, the way the very air seemed to shift, screamed power. Ms. Martinez, his voice was smooth, controlled. Thank you for coming down. I'm Luca DeSantis. He extended his hand. Clara shook it automatically. His grip was firm, but gentle. I understand my associate told you why I'm here, he continued. He said the woman I helped was your mother. She was. She is. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe. You showed her kindness when she needed it most. I wanted to thank you personally. Clara glanced around. Half her building was watching from windows now. You didn't have to come here. You could have called. Some things should be said face to face. Lucas studied her carefully. Do you know who I am, Ms. Martinez? She thought about lying, but something told her he'd see through it. I've heard the name.
You're
connected. A ghost of a smile. Connected is polite. Most people use different words. He gestured to the building stoop. May we sit? I promise this won't take long. Against her better judgment, Clara sat. Lucas settled beside her, close enough to talk quietly, but far enough to not feel threatening. His men fanned out, watching the street. My mother left home 8 months ago, Lucas said quietly. We had a fight. She said some things. I said some things. Then she disappeared. His jaw tightened. I looked everywhere. Used every resource I have. And I have considerable resources. Clara stayed quiet, sensing he needed to say this. I couldn't find her. My own mother, and I failed to protect her. He looked at Clara directly. But you, a stranger working a long shift, barely getting by, you saw her. You helped her. You gave her food from your own tips. You lost your job defending her. How do you know? I know everything, Ms. Martinez. It's my business to know, he said it without arrogance, just fact. I know Marcus blacklisted you. I know you can't get hired anywhere. I know your rent is due, and your father needs care. Fear crept up Clara's spine. Are you threatening me? No, Luca's voice softened. I'm thanking you, and I'm offering to fix what was broken. Fix how? The blacklist can disappear. Marcus can be encouraged to retract his statements. Doors that closed can reopen. He met her eyes. You helped my mother. Let me help you. Clara's instincts screamed warnings. This man was dangerous. Whatever help he offered would come with strings, with debts, with complications she couldn't afford. I don't want your money, she said. I'm not offering money. I'm offering to correct an injustice. By doing what? Threatening people? Breaking laws. Clara stood. I appreciate you thanking me, Mr. DeSantis. But I help people because it's right, not because I expect payback. Lucas stood too, and God, he was tall. But he didn't move closer. You're scared of me, he observed. I'm cautious. Smart. He pulled out a card, handed it to her. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. Just a phone number. I'm not asking you to accept anything tonight. But if you need help, real help, call that number. Clara took the card, not sure why. I can handle my own problems. I'm sure you can. You seem very capable. Something warm entered his expression. But sometimes capable people need help too. There's no shame in that. He started toward his car, then paused. My mother asked about you. She wanted me to tell you she's safe now.
Warm.
Federal. Because of you. Clara's throat tightened.
I'm glad.
She also said to tell you, Lucas smiled slightly, that the soup was the best she'd ever had. Before Clara could respond, he slid into the Mercedes. The door closed. The car pulled away smoothly, followed by two others she hadn't noticed. Just like that, he was gone. Clara stood on the sidewalk, card in hand, aware of eyes on her from every window. Tomorrow, everyone would be talking. Mrs. Chen would ask questions. Mr. Rodriguez would speculate. The whole building would know that a man like Luca DeSantis had come for her. She looked at the card. Just a number. No name.
No explanation.
In her pocket, her phone buzzed. Another rejection email, probably. Clara climbed back to her apartment, locked the door, and sat heavily on the couch. The card lay on the coffee table, innocent and dangerous at once. She should throw it away. Should pretend tonight never happened. Should keep struggling on her own like she always had. But as she stared at her laptop, at the rejection emails, at the rent reminder, at her bank balance, she couldn't help wondering. What if he really could fix things? What would that cost her? And more importantly, was she desperate enough to find out? Marcus Webb loved his job. Floor manager at Russo's meant respect, decent pay, and the power to make people squirm. He'd fired dozens of servers over the years. Some deserved it. Some didn't. He never lost sleep either way. But on Thursday morning, when he walked into Russo's, 3 city inspectors were already inside. What's going on? Marcus demanded. The lead inspector, a tired-looking woman with a clipboard, barely glanced at him. Health and safety inspection. Routine. We had one 3 months ago. We got a complaint. Anonymous tip about food storage violations. She pointed to the walk-in freezer. Start there. Marcus's jaw tightened. They'd just passed inspection with flying colors. There were no violations. This was harassment. The inspection took 4 hours. They found everything: a freezer running half a degree too warm, expired permits that were actually current but filed under old paperwork, a grease trap that needed cleaning 2 weeks earlier than scheduled. Violations Marcus knew weren't really violations, just technical nonsense that could be weaponized. We're shutting you down for 48 hours, the inspector said, until these issues are corrected. That's insane. It's Friday. We have reservations for 200 people tonight. She handed him citations. Should have maintained your equipment. Marcus called his district manager, who called his boss, who called corporate. Within an hour, lawyers were involved. The violations mysteriously held up under scrutiny. Every technicality was ironclad. Russo's closed for the weekend. Marcus spent Saturday dealing with angry customers and corporate executives who blamed him for everything. Sunday brought a new problem. Their meat supplier, the same company they'd used for 8 years, didn't deliver. What do you mean you can't deliver? Marcus shouted into his phone. System shows your account's been flagged, the supplier said. Payment issues. We don't have payment issues. We pay on time, every time. I'm just reading what the system says. You'll need to sort it with accounting. Marcus called accounting. They couldn't find any flags. Called the supplier back. Now suddenly their warehouse was having inventory issues. He switched to their backup supplier. Same story. Then the third option. By Monday, Marcus realized something was wrong. Not accident wrong. Deliberately wrong. Tuesday brought the auditor. IRS. Marcus stared at the badge. There must be a mistake. Prestige Dining Group is being audited for tax irregularities, the woman said calmly. We need access to your financial records. All of them. Marcus wasn't in charge of taxes, that was corporate, but he had to facilitate, which meant opening books, providing receipts, explaining every transaction from the past 3 years. He called his boss, Jerry Chen, the regional director. What the hell is happening? Marcus demanded. I don't know. Jerry sounded panicked. The auditor said someone sent anonymous documents to the IRS. Bank records. Expense reports. Things that should have been private. What kind of documents? The kind that show we've been creative. With our tax strategies, Jerry's voice dropped. Marcus, this is bad. Really bad. If they find what I think they'll find, we're looking at fines. Maybe criminal charges. Marcus felt sweat bead on his forehead. I didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, well, you're the public face of our flagship restaurant. Guess who they're going to talk to first? The line went dead. Over the next 3 days, everything fell apart. Supply chains stayed broken. City inspectors showed up again, fire marshal this time, then building safety. Each visit found tiny violations that somehow required major fixes. Russo's could only open for limited hours.
Customers complained.
Online reviews tanked. Corporate started asking questions about Marcus's management. And through it all, Marcus felt eyes watching him. Nothing obvious. Just a sense that someone, somewhere, was orchestrating this. On Thursday, exactly 1 week after firing Clara, Marcus got a call from an unknown number. Hello. Silence. Then a man's voice, calm and cold. You blacklisted someone you shouldn't have. Marcus's blood went cold. Who is this? Doesn't matter. What matters is that you're going to fix it. Call every restaurant in your network. Tell them Clara Martinez was an excellent employee. Tell them you made a mistake. I don't. You have until end of business today. If you don't, tomorrow brings new problems. Tax fraud allegations. OSHA violations. Maybe even immigration audits on your kitchen staff. I'm sure everyone's documentation is perfect, right? The line clicked off. Marcus stood there, phone shaking in his hand. He should call the police. Should report threats. But something told him that wouldn't help. Something told him that whoever was calling had the power to make good on every threat. He thought about Clara Martinez, about the homeless woman, about that night. And slowly, he understood. By 3 p.m., Marcus had called 15 restaurants. His pride choked him with every word, but he made the calls. Clara Martinez. Excellent worker. Mistake on my part. Highly recommend. The blacklist evaporated like morning fog. Meanwhile, across town, Clara was making lunch when her phone rang.
Giuseppe's.
The restaurant that rejected her on day 1. Ms. Martinez? This is Giuseppe's. We had a position open up. Would you be interested in interviewing? Clara blinked. You said you weren't hiring. Scheduling changed. Can you come in tomorrow? Before she could answer, another call beeped through. The diner in Brooklyn. By evening, Clara had received 6 calls. 6 restaurants suddenly interested. Some apologetic. We reviewed your application again, others straightforward. We have an opening after all. She sat on her couch, staring at her phone in disbelief. This didn't just happen. Restaurants didn't call back rejected applicants.
Not in this city.
Not unless. Her eyes drifted to the card on the coffee table. The one she'd been trying to ignore for 3 days.
Luca De Santis.
No, she whispered. He didn't. But of course he had. The timing was too perfect. The sudden reversals, too convenient. He'd done something. Fixed things, like he'd promised. And she hadn't even called him. Clara picked up the card, turned it over in her hands. Part of her felt relief. She could work again, could pay rent, could breathe. But another part felt something darker.
Debt.
She didn't ask for this. Didn't want to owe a man like Luca De Santis. But wanting didn't matter. He'd acted, and now consequences would follow. In his world, everything had a price. Clara just didn't know what hers would be yet. Her phone rang again. Another restaurant. Another opportunity. She answered with shaking hands, accepting the interview, playing the grateful job seeker. But inside, she felt the threads tightening, felt the web expanding around her. Luca had said he wasn't asking for anything, but men like him didn't give without expecting something in return. The question wasn't if he'd collect. It was when. Clara took the job at Giuseppe's. It wasn't her first choice. The pay was slightly less than Russo's, but they'd called first, and she needed income immediately. 3 days of training, then she was back on the floor, carrying plates and forcing smiles. It felt good to work again. Normal. Like maybe her life was getting back on track. She was wrong. The first sign came on her second shift. A man at table 6 kept watching her. Not the usual creepy customer stare, this was different. Calculated. Like he was memorizing her movements. When she brought his check, he smiled. "You're new here. Started this week," Clara said politely. "Giuseppe's is lucky to have you," he handed her a credit card. "I heard you came from Russo's." Clara's instincts prickled. That's right.
Shame what happened there.
All those inspections, supply problems. Bad luck, his smile never reached his eyes. Or maybe not luck at all. She processed his payment quickly, hands steady despite her racing heart. Will there be anything else? Just a thought, he pocketed his receipt. Sometimes when powerful people take interest in someone, it attracts attention. You should be careful, Ms. Martinez. He left before she could respond. Clara stood frozen, his words echoing. When powerful people take interest in someone. She'd been so careful. Kept her head down, worked her shifts, avoided talking about Luca or that night.
But somehow, people knew anyway.
The city had eyes, and they were watching her. 2 days later, it happened. Clara was walking home from the subway, half a block from her building, when a sleek gray car pulled alongside her. Not aggressive, just keeping pace. The passenger window rolled down. A man leaned out, mid-40s, expensive suit, perfect hair. He looked like a banker or lawyer. Respectable. Dangerous. "Ms. Martinez? I'd like to speak with you." Clara kept walking. "Not interested. Just 5 minutes. I promise it's worth your time." I said no. The car stopped. The man got out, moving to block her path. Up close, she could see he wasn't alone. A driver waited in the car, watching. "My name is Vincent Rossi," he said smoothly. "I represent certain business interests in the city. I'd like to offer you a position." Clara's heart hammered. "I have a job, a better position, with better pay. $20 an hour to start. Full benefits. Flexible schedule." His smile was practiced, perfect. "All you need to do is answer a few questions from time to time." Questions about what? About your friend, Mr. DeSantis. There it was. The real offer. The trap. Clara stepped back. "He's not my friend. I don't know him." "That's not what we heard." Vincent moved closer, not threatening but persistent. "We know he came to your building. Know he fixed your employment problems. Know he's taken a special interest in you." He paused. "We're just curious why." "There is no why. I helped someone. He thanked me. That's it." "If that's true, then you have nothing to lose by talking to us." Vincent pulled out a business card. "We're not asking you to do anything dangerous. Just keep your eyes open. Share what you observe. In return, we offer protection." "Protection from what?" "From complications." His eyes hardened slightly. "From becoming collateral damage in games you don't understand. The DeSantis family has enemies, Ms. Martinez. People who might think you're valuable. People who might try to use you." Clara's mouth went dry. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm offering you a choice." He held out the card. "Work with us willingly, or wait until circumstances force your hand. Either way, you're already involved. The question is which side you choose." Clara looked at the card, looked at Vincent's cold smile, looked at the driver in the car, watching with dead eyes. Every instinct screamed danger. "No," she said firmly. "I'm not choosing any side. I'm a waitress. That's all. I don't know anything about Mr. DeSantis, and I don't want to." "That's unfortunate." Vincent pocketed the card. "You should reconsider. The DeSantis protection only extends so far. And Luca," he smiled. "Luca gets bored easily. Today you're interesting. Tomorrow, you'll be forgotten. Then he'll watch out for you." He got back in the car. It pulled away smoothly, leaving Clara shaking on the sidewalk. She ran the last block home, locked her door, and collapsed against it. This was insane. She'd fed a homeless woman soup. That was it. One act of kindness, and now strange men were following her, offering money for information, talking about protection and enemies. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Clara almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Ms. Martinez, a different voice this time. Calm, professional. This is Tony Greco. I work for Mr. DeSantis. Her breath caught. How did you? Someone approached you 10 minutes ago. Vincent Rossi. We need to know exactly what he said. Clara felt her skin crawl. They'd been watching. The whole time, someone had been watching. How do you know that? We keep an eye on people important to Mr. DeSantis. Tony's tone suggested this was obvious. Did Rossi threaten you? He offered me a job. Wanted information about Luca. What did you tell him? Nothing. I told him no. I told him I don't know anything. Clara's voice rose. I didn't ask for any of this. I know. Tony's voice softened slightly. You're doing fine. But Ms. Martinez, you need to understand something. The Rossi family and Mr. DeSantis have
History.
bad history. If they approached you, it means they think you matter to him. But I don't. Perception is reality in this world. They think you're connected. That makes you a target. He paused. Mr. DeSantis wants to meet with you again. Tomorrow evening. He'll explain everything. I don't want to meet. I want to be left alone. That's not an option anymore. Tony's voice held genuine regret. You're already involved. Meeting with Mr. DeSantis is the safest thing you can do right now. He can protect you from the Rossis. I don't want his protection. I don't want any of this. Then you should have walked past his mother that night. Tony said it gently, but the words hit like a slap. I'm sorry, Ms. Martinez. I really am. But you made a choice. Now you have to live with where it led. The line went dead. Clara sat on her couch, phone clutched in shaking hands. She wanted to scream.
To cry.
To pack a bag and run somewhere far away where Mafia families didn't fight over waitresses. But she couldn't run. She had rent, responsibilities, her father's care. She couldn't just disappear. And worse, she realized with growing horror, they'd find her anyway. Men like Luca and Vincent had resources. Connections. They could find anyone anywhere. There was no running from this. She'd opened a door that night at Russo's. Fed a hungry woman. Shown simple human kindness. And that door had led to a world she couldn't escape. Clara looked at her reflection in the dark window. She looked the same as always, tired, young, ordinary. But she wasn't ordinary anymore. She was connected.
Watched.
Valuable. And tomorrow, she'd have to face Luca DeSantis again and figure out what the hell that meant. Clara didn't meet with Luca the next evening. She worked a double shift instead, hoping that staying in public, staying visible, would keep her safe. When her shift ended at 11 p.m., Jenny offered to pick her up.
Ai fine, Clara lid.
Subways faster. She regretted it the moment she stepped off the train. Her street was darker than usual, 2 streetlights out, shadows pooling between buildings. The bodega on the corner had closed early. Even the usual cluster of teenagers hanging out on the stoop was absent.
Wrong.
Something felt wrong. Clara walked faster, keys already in her hand, pepper spray in the other. Her building was 3 blocks away. She could make it. Just keep moving. Footsteps echoed behind her. She didn't turn, didn't slow down, but her heart started hammering. The footsteps matched her pace. Clara turned the corner onto her street. Almost there. 1 more block. A car engine started ahead of her. The same gray sedan from yesterday pulled out, blocking the sidewalk. 2 men got out. Clara spun around. The footsteps behind her materialized into 2 more men, cutting off her escape.
Trapped.
Ms. Martinez, Vincent Rossi stepped from the sedan, hands in his pockets, looking relaxed. I thought we could continue our conversation. Clara's hand tightened on her pepper spray. Stay back. I'm not going to hurt you, Vincent smiled, but his men moved closer, forming a loose circle. We just want to talk. Somewhere private. We can talk right here. I don't think you understand the situation. His smile faded. Mr. DeSantis isn't here to save you. His men aren't watching tonight. Right now, it's just us. Clara's blood turned to ice. They'd planned this. Waited until she was alone. Vulnerable. What do you want? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Get in the car. You're going to call Mr. DeSantis and deliver a message for us.
No.
It's not a request, Vincent nodded to his men. They moved closer. Clara raised the pepper spray. I swear to God, if you touch me. One of the men grabbed her wrist, twisting. The pepper spray clattered to the ground. Another man caught her other arm. She tried to scream, but a hand clamped over her mouth. Terror flooded through her. This was real. This was actually happening. They started dragging her toward the car. Clara fought, kicked, struggled, tried to bite the hand over her mouth, but they were too strong. Then headlights. A black SUV came around the corner fast, tires squealing. It slammed to a stop 10 feet away. Doors flew open. 4 men poured out. Clara recognized one, the man who'd come to her apartment, Tony. Let her go. Tony's voice was dead calm.
Now.
Vincent's men hesitated. The hand on Clara's mouth loosened slightly. This doesn't concern you, Vincent said, but his confidence was cracking. Everything concerning Ms. Martinez concerns us. Tony stepped forward. His men flanked him, and Clara noticed they all had guns. Not drawn, but visible. You're on DeSantis territory. You're touching someone under DeSantis protection. You've got about 5 seconds to let her go before this gets ugly. You're outnumbered, Vincent tried. No, Tony smiled, and it was the coldest thing Clara had ever seen. We're just the first wave. As if on cue, another car pulled up behind the SUV. Then another. 6 more men emerged. Vincent's expression shifted from confident to calculating. He was doing math, Clara realized. Weighing odds. Deciding if she was worth a war. Release her, he ordered his men. The hands dropped. Clara stumbled forward, and Tony caught her arm, pulling her behind him. You made a mistake tonight, Tony said quietly. Mr. DeSantis is going to hear about this. All of it. She's not his wife. Not his family. Vincent backed toward his car. She's nobody. She's somebody to him. That makes her off limits. Tony's voice dropped to something dangerous. Touch her again, and there won't be a negotiation. There won't be a sit-down. There'll just be consequences. Vincent's jaw clenched, but he got in his car. His men followed. The sedan pulled away, followed by the other vehicles. The moment they were gone, Clara's legs gave out. Tony caught her before she hit the ground. I've got you. You're okay. You're safe. They were going to. Clara couldn't finish. Her whole body was shaking. But they didn't. We were here. Tony helped her to the SUV. Open the door. Get in. We're taking you somewhere secure. My apartment isn't safe tonight. Maybe not for a while. He looked at her with something like pity. Ms. Martinez, do you understand now? This isn't going away. The Rossis know your face. They know where you live. They'll try again. Clara's mind reeled.
Why?
What do they want from me? Leverage against Mr. DeSantis. They think if they control you, they control him. Tony's expression was grim. They're not entirely wrong. But I don't mean anything to him. I fed his mother once. That's it. Doesn't matter what you mean. Matters what they think you mean. Tony climbed in beside her. The SUV started moving. And after tonight, after he hears they tried to take you, you're going to mean a lot more. Clara put her head in her hands. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be her life. But it was. The bruises forming on her wrists proved it. The fear still coursing through her veins proved it. She'd walked past that homeless woman. She'd be home right now watching TV with Jenny. Safe.
Free.
Instead, she'd shown kindness. And kindness had led here, to being grabbed on dark streets, to becoming a pawn in someone else's war. Where are you taking me? She asked quietly. To Mr. DeSantis. He needs to see her okay. Needs to. Tony paused. Needs to know what they did. Clara looked out the window. The city blurred past. Somewhere out there, Vincent Rossi was planning his next move. Somewhere, other men were watching, calculating, deciding what she was worth. And somewhere, Luca DeSantis was about to find out that someone had tried to hurt something he'd claimed as his. Clara didn't know much about the Mafia, but she knew enough to understand that men like Luca didn't forgive threats to what was theirs. Blood would answer blood. Violence would answer violence. And she, kind, ordinary Clara Martinez who just wanted to help people, was going to be the reason for it. The SUV drove through the night, carrying her toward a conversation she wasn't ready to have, with a man she couldn't afford to be connected to. But Choice had left the building 3 nights ago, along with her apron and her old life. Now there was only survival, only protection, only Luca, whether she wanted it or not. The safe house was quiet when they arrived. Clara was led to a small sitting room with comfortable furniture and warm lighting. Nothing like the cold, stark space she'd imagined. Tony brought her tea she didn't drink, then left her alone. She sat there for 20 minutes, bruises darkening on her wrists, replaying the attack over and over. When the door opened, Luca walked in alone.
No bodyguards. No entourage.
Just him, looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen a man look. His tie was loose, his usually perfect hair slightly disheveled. But his eyes burned with something cold and furious. He looked at her wrists first, the bruises, then at her face. Did they hurt you anywhere else? His voice was carefully controlled.
No.
They grabbed me, but your men came before. Clara swallowed. Before anything else happened.
Luca nodded slowly.
He sat across from her, not close, giving her space. For a long moment he said nothing, just looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. I'm sorry, he finally said. Clara hadn't expected that. For what? For putting you in danger. For not anticipating that the Rossis would move this quickly. His jaw tightened. For being the reason you're sitting here with bruises instead of safe in your home. It's not your fault. It is. Luca leaned forward, elbows on his knees. The moment I walked into that restaurant looking for my mother, the moment I learned what you did for her, I made you visible. I put a spotlight on you without your permission. And tonight, you paid the price. Clara wrapped her arms around herself. What happens now? Now I make sure it never happens again. Something dark crossed his face. The Rossis will understand that touching you means war. They'll back off. And then what? I spend the rest of my life with bodyguards? Looking over my shoulder? Maybe, he met her eyes. Or you accept what I'm about to offer you. Clara tensed. I told you, I don't want. Let me finish. Luca held up a hand.
Please.
After tonight, you deserve to hear this. She nodded warily. Luca stood, walked to the window. When my mother told me about you, about what you did, it wasn't just the soup. It was how you treated her. Like she mattered. Like she was human, not invisible. He turned back. Do you know how rare that is? To see someone suffering and actually stop. I just did what anyone should do. But most don't. Most walk past. Look away. Convince themselves it's not their problem. His voice softened. You didn't. You sacrificed your job, your income, your future. For a stranger. Clara said nothing. What could she say? My mother hasn't smiled like that in years, Luca continued. She told me the soup was good, but what made her cry was being seen. You gave her dignity when everyone else gave her disgust. He moved back to his chair, sat down. I've been thinking about that. About what it means. And I realized something. He looked directly at her. You shouldn't be punished for having a good heart. You should be empowered to use it. I don't understand. I want to fund a community food network. Kitchens across the city where people, homeless, struggling, anyone who needs it, can get hot meals. Not charity. Not handouts. But real food, served with respect. His eyes held hers. And I want you to run it. Clara stared. What? You have full control. Budget, locations, hiring, everything. I'll fund it completely through my legitimate businesses. No dirty money. No strings. He leaned forward. This isn't about me owning you, Clara. It's about letting you do what you already want to do, help people, but with resources that actually make a difference. I'm a waitress. I don't know how to run. You know what hungry people need because you've been there. You understand dignity because you gave it to my mother when no one else would. Luca's voice was earnest now, almost pleading. I'll give you advisors, managers, whatever support you need. But the vision, the heart, that comes from you. Clara's mind spun. A food network, feeding people across the city, with real funding, real support. It was everything she'd dreamed about when she volunteered at shelters, but never imagined she could actually do. Why me? She whispered. Because you proved you care. Because you lost everything for one bowl of soup, which means you'll fight like hell when you have real resources behind you, he paused. And because my mother asked me to. Your mother? She's staying with me now.
Safe.
Federal. She told me that what you gave her, that moment of kindness, saved more than her body. It saved her faith that good people still exist. Luca's voice cracked slightly. She wants you to give that to others. Not pity, not charity, but real, human connection. One meal at a time. Tears burned Clara's eyes. She'd fed one woman.
One. And now?
I don't know if I can do this, she admitted. I think you can. I think you're exactly the person who should. Luca pulled out a folder, set it on the table between them. This is a proposal. Locations. Budget.
Timeline.
Look it over. Think about it. But Clara, he met her eyes. This isn't payment. Isn't obligation. This is me giving you the tools to do what you were already willing to sacrifice everything for. Clara looked at the folder. At the bruises on her wrists. At this dangerous, powerful man offering her something that actually mattered. If I say yes, she said slowly, does this mean I'm part of your world? Part of all this? It means you're under my protection.
But the work?
The food network? That's yours.
Clean.
Legal. Something you can be proud of, he stood. Take the night. Read the proposal. Tomorrow, when you're ready, call me. He walked to the door, then paused. My mother is asking about you. She'd like to meet properly. Thank you herself, he glanced back. She's the only person I've ever truly respected, Clara. And she respects you. That means something in my world. It means everything. After he left, Clara sat alone with the folder. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were plans for 5 kitchens across the city. Budgets that made her gasp. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Architectural drawings. Staffing proposals. A mission statement written in someone else's hand, but somehow capturing exactly what she would have said. To feed the hungry with dignity. To see the invisible. To remind people they matter. Clara closed her eyes. She thought about that cold night. About the woman shivering outside the window. About the choice that had led her here. She'd lost her job that night. Lost her safety. Nearly lost her freedom. But maybe, just maybe, she'd found something bigger. A purpose. A way to turn one act of kindness into thousands. If she was brave enough to take it. Clara spent 5 days thinking about it. 5 days reading and rereading the proposal. 5 days lying awake at night, imagining the kitchens, the people they could feed, the difference they could make. 5 days talking herself into it, then out of it, then back in again. She was a waitress. A dropout. Someone who could barely keep her own life together. How could she run something this big? But every time she decided to say no, she remembered that woman's face. The gratitude in her eyes. The way eating that soup had made her cry. If Clara could do that for one person, what could she do for hundreds? Thousands? On the 6th day, someone knocked on her apartment door. Clara checked the peephole, then froze. Maria DeSantis stood in her hallway alone, wearing a simple blue dress and looking nothing like the woman from that rainy night. She'd gained weight. Her hair was clean and styled. But her eyes, those same sad, kind eyes, were unmistakable. Clara opened the door.
MRS. DeSantis.
Please call me Maria, the older woman smiled. May I come in? Clara stepped aside, suddenly embarrassed by the tiny apartment, the couch she slept on, the dishes in the sink. But Maria didn't seem to notice. She looked around with the appreciation of someone who'd slept on streets. "You have a lovely home," Maria said. "Small, but full of warmth. I can tell." They sat. Clara made coffee, her hands nervous. "I wanted to see you," Maria said. "To thank you properly." Face to face, she reached out, took Clara's hand. "What you did for me that night, you didn't have to. You had every reason not to. I couldn't just leave you there. Most people do." Most people did. Maria's eyes glistened. "I was invisible, Clara. For 8 months I lived on those streets, and I was invisible. People looked through me like I was glass. Like I didn't exist. I'm sorry that happened to you. Don't be sorry. Be proud." Maria squeezed her hand. "Because you saw me.
You gave me soup, yes.
But more than that, you gave me proof that kindness still exists. That people can still care about strangers." Clara felt tears building. "I lost my job." "I know. And I'm sorrier about that than I can say." Maria paused. "But Luca told me about his offer. The Food Network." "I don't know if I can do it," Clara admitted. "I'm not qualified. I've never run anything. What if I fail?" Maria laughed softly. "Do you know what qualified me to raise my son alone after his father died? Nothing. I was 23, broke, terrified. But I did it anyway because he needed me to." She looked at Clara intently. "You're not being asked to be perfect. You're being asked to care. And you've already proven you know how to do that. But this is different. This is big. Important. Then make it even bigger." Maria's voice grew stronger. "You gave me soup. Now, I want you to give hope to others. Thousands of others. People like I was, cold, hungry, forgotten. You can remind them they matter." Clara wiped her eyes. "What if I mess it up? Then you'll fix it. That's what people like us do. We survive. We adapt. We keep going." Maria smiled. "Besides, you won't be alone. Luca will support you. I'll support you. You'll have teams, resources, everything you need." "Why does he care this much?" "It was just soup." "It was never just soup." Maria's voice softened. "It was dignity when I had none. It was proof that my life still had value. And for my son, who spent 8 months searching for me, who blamed himself for losing me, it was proof that good people still exist in this hard world." She paused. "You saved my life, Clara. Maybe not medically, but in every way that matters. Let us help you save others." Clara looked at this woman who'd been through hell and come out stronger, who'd lost everything and found her way back, who was asking no, encouraging her to take this impossible leap. "You really think I can do this?" Clara whispered. "I know you can, because you already did it for me, with nothing but kindness and courage." Maria stood, pulled Clara up with her. "The question isn't whether you can, it's whether you will." Clara called Luca that afternoon. "I'll do it," she said. "I'll run the Food Network." She heard him exhale. "You won't regret this." "I already regret it. But I'm doing it anyway." He laughed, and it was the most genuine sound she'd ever heard from him. That's the right attitude. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. Luca's team descended like a professional army. Lawyers, accountants, real estate agents, all working to make the Food Network real. But they didn't take over, they supported. Every decision came to Clara first. Location for the first kitchen? Clara chose East Harlem, where need was greatest. Menu options? Clara insisted on real food, pot roast, fresh vegetables, homemade bread. Nothing institutional. Nothing that screamed charity. "This is for people who deserve better," she told the architect. "Make it welcoming.
Warm.
Like someone's kitchen, not a cafeteria." She interviewed staff personally. Cooks, servers, coordinators. She looked for people who understood what it meant to struggle, who wouldn't judge, who could see past circumstances to the humans underneath. "I was homeless once," one applicant admitted. "Is that a problem?" "It's why you're perfect," Clara said, and hired her on the spot. Through it all, Clara stayed herself. She refused the fancy office Luca offered, working instead from a small space in the first kitchen. She wore jeans and comfortable shoes, not suits. She learned names. Every person who walked through those doors got greeted by name if they'd been there before. Maria visited often, offering advice, sharing meals with guests. She and Clara formed a bond that surprised them both. Two women from different worlds, connected by one cold night and a bowl of soup. "You're doing beautifully," Maria said one afternoon, watching Clara serve lunch. "Better than I imagined." Clara smiled, tired but happy. "I'm learning. Making mistakes. That's called growth." Maria touched her arm. "I'm proud of you." Those words meant more than any praise from Luca's executives. More than the glowing media coverage starting to appear. More than the budget spreadsheets showing they were under cost. Clara was doing this. Actually doing it. Feeding people. Giving them dignity. Making a difference. She was still scared. Still uncertain. Still waiting for the moment she'd fail spectacularly. But for now, for these precious moments when hungry people sat down to hot meals and genuine smiles, she was exactly where she needed to be. Doing exactly what she was meant to do. One bowl of soup at a time. The morning of the grand opening, Clara couldn't eat. She stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the simple blue dress Maria had helped her pick out. Nothing flashy. Nothing expensive. Just professional enough for the cameras, but still her. "You look perfect," Jenny said from the doorway. "I can't believe this is happening." Clara couldn't either. 3 weeks ago, she'd been fired for feeding a homeless woman. Today, she was opening the first location of Hope Kitchen, a food network that would eventually span the entire city. Outside the East Harlem location, the street was already packed. News vans lined the block. Reporters tested microphones. Neighbors crowded the sidewalk, curious and excited. Someone had strung up lights. Someone else had brought flowers. The building itself looked beautiful. Warm brick exterior, large windows showing the gleaming kitchen inside. A hand-painted sign above the door. Hope Kitchen, where everyone belongs. Clara arrived an hour before the ceremony. Inside, her staff, 12 people she'd personally hired, were making final preparations. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. Soup simmered on industrial stoves. Everything was ready. Clara. Maria appeared, radiant in a gray dress. She pulled Clara into a hug. "Today's the day." "I'm terrified," Clara admitted. "Good. That means you care," Maria smiled.
Come.
"There's someone here to see you." In the back office, Luca stood looking at framed photos Clara had hung on the walls. Pictures of people the kitchen had already served during soft opening week. Faces smiling over meals. Dignity restored, one plate at a time. "You did this," he said quietly. "Built something real. Something that matters." "You funded it," Clara countered. "Money's easy. Vision is rare." He turned to face her. "You ready for the circus out there?"
No.
"But I'm doing it anyway." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile she'd only seen a handful of times. "My mother would be proud."
I'm proud.
Before Clara could respond, Tony appeared in the doorway. "It's time, boss." The ceremony was held on the sidewalk. A small stage had been erected, a red ribbon stretched across the entrance. Clara stood between Luca and Maria, facing a sea of cameras and curious faces. The crowd was bigger than she'd imagined. Neighbors, press, local politicians. But also, Clara's throat tightened, people she recognized. Homeless individuals from the neighborhood. People who'd eaten at Hope Kitchen during test runs. They stood in the back, watching. For them, she reminded herself. This is for them. A city councilwoman spoke first, talking about community initiatives and public-private partnerships. Words that meant little to Clara, but seemed to satisfy the cameras. Then Luca stepped to the microphone. The crowd quieted immediately. Even people who didn't know his face knew his presence. He commanded attention the way the sun commanded the sky, inevitable, undeniable. 3 weeks ago, Luca began, his voice carrying easily. Someone in this city did something simple. Something that should be ordinary, but has become extraordinary. She fed a hungry woman, gave her soup and bread, and, most importantly, dignity. He paused, looking at Clara. That woman was my mother, and the person who helped her was Clara Martinez. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward. This was news. Luca DeSantis, known businessman with rumored connections, publicly acknowledging a personal story. Clara didn't know who my mother was. Didn't know helping her would cost Clara her job, her income, her safety. Luca's voice hardened slightly. She helped because it was right, because someone was suffering and she couldn't look away. He gestured to the building behind them. Hope Kitchen exists because of that moment. Because Clara proved that kindness still matters in the city. That seeing people, really seeing them, can change everything. He looked directly at Clara. She's not just the director of this network. She's family. And this kitchen represents what family should be, a place where nobody is invisible. Where everyone deserves a seat at the table. The crowd applauded. Maria was crying. Clara felt her own tears threatening. Luca stepped back, offering Clara the microphone. She took it with shaking hands, looked out at all those faces, at the cameras that would broadcast this across the city, at the homeless individuals in the back who'd come to see if this place was real. I'm just a waitress, she said simply. I don't have fancy speeches prepared. But I know what it's like to struggle, to worry about rent and bills and whether you'll make it another month. She swallowed. And I know what it feels like to be invisible. Her eyes found Maria, who nodded encouragement. Hope Kitchen isn't charity. It's community. Everyone who walks through these doors will be treated with respect, fed with care, seen as human beings who matter. Clara's voice grew stronger. Because that's what we all deserve. That's what that woman deserved 3 weeks ago when I gave her soup. That's what everyone deserves every single day. She looked back at the building, at her staff visible through the windows, ready to serve. So come eat with us. Talk with us. Be part of something that says we still care about each other in this city. Clara smiled through tears. One meal at a time. The applause was thunderous. Maria handed Clara the scissors. Together, Clara, Luca, and Maria, they cut the ribbon. It fell away, and the doors opened. People flooded inside. Reporters followed, cameras rolling. But Clara noticed the homeless individuals entering last, hesitant, checking if this was really for them. She walked over personally. Welcome to Hope Kitchen, she said to an older man she recognized from the neighborhood. Would you like lunch? His eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? Come on. As she led him inside, as her staff began serving meals, as reporters interviewed Maria, as Luca watched from the corner with something like pride, Clara felt it. She'd been fired for feeding one woman, lost everything for one bowl of soup. But that soup had led here, to this moment, to this place where hundreds would be fed, where dignity would be served alongside every meal, where kindness had built something that would outlast them all. Clara looked at Maria across the crowded kitchen. The older woman smiled, mouthed thank you. No, Clara thought. Thank you. For being cold that night. For being brave enough to accept help. For leading me here. She turned to serve another plate, another person, another moment of connection. One bowl of soup had changed everything. And it was only the beginning.